One X factor for every American League contending teams. We got the teams loaded up. We're going to look at the Yankees, the Orioles, the Red Sox, the Rays, the Guardians, the Twins, the Royals, the Astros, and the Mariners. We didn't include the Rangers. We keep doing this.
Life comes at you quick, man, on this show.
Life comes at you quick. I'm looking at the records and I'm seeing 10 games below 500. I'm seeing getting their shit rocked by the Red Sox. And I'm just thinking to myself, we tried. We tried to find a lane. We tried to hype them up. They're the defending World Series champs. But I don't think this team is making the playoffs. And I don't think there's an X factor on the team that points them into that direction, especially with how well the Astros are playing and how well the Mariners are playing too. I can't do it.
The Astros and Mariners getting hot, just made it kind of impossible now. So like it's a shame, but they got it last year. It's really hard to defend it, and they're gonna have everybody back. Might be a good thing, because maybe you take your time with DeGrom now. Maybe you take your time with some of these other guys. You definitely shut down Evan Carter. So, it stinks, but I think they're still going to be a force next year too.
Absolutely. And we didn't include the Tigers, even though I think they're close, but I know they beat the living shit out of George Kirby yesterday. I mean, holy
Welcome back, Kerry Carpenter.
Welcome back, Kerry Carpenter, too. So the Tigers are exciting. I think the window is going to be opening next year. But right now, I just couldn't find an X factor that's going to turn them into a playoff team. They need multiple guys to start hitting, and they need Javi Baez to stop hitting.
I was going to say X factor is release Javi Baez. That would be the X factor for them.
Absolutely. All right. Also, just another note for our friends on BetMGM. It's Wednesday, August 14th. Guess what Javier Baez is? Because he hasn't struck out in 2 straight games. Guess what his line was to strike out today?
I didn't even know they offered that. Minus.
Remember, a strikeout, like, I know Javier Baez strikes out a lot, but it's obviously not like minus a trillion, like anything like that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think like realistically.
He's got 4 at bats, so to strike out in one of them, what do you think a realistic line would be?
Realistic line minus 130,
minus 200, minus 205 actually. I don't know if he's going to strike.
What's the implied probability of that? So that's like 75% chance.
Minus 150 is a 60% chance of striking out. So minus 200 is probably going to be 65-70% in that range. I'd have to go back and do my math, but yeah,
that's pretty brutal.
Yeah, very brutal. But maybe he doesn't strike out today. Maybe he goes 3.
I mean, that's crazy. He hasn't struck out in 2 games.
Yeah, good for him.
Good for him.
Good for him. All right, let's start with the New York Yankees. Their big X factor. I mean, I obviously have mine. I can give it to you as the Yankee fan. But I am curious, would you like to go first on this, or you want me to just go after it?
You go after it, and then I'll see like how different we are here.
Okay, so when I look at the New York Yankees, they've had differing problems kind of all season long. At the beginning of the season, they didn't have any problems. Their starting pitching was elite. Their offense was elite because a lot of the guys at the bottom of the order were really hitting, and their bullpen looked good as well. And then we enter into the middle parts of the season, and the bottom of the lineup is not showing up, and a lot of those starters that were off to great starts kind of faltered a little bit. Notably, Marcus Stroman, a little bit of Nestor Cortez Jr., of course, Clark Schmidt goes down, and the bullpen has been kind of hit or miss, but at this point, I don't view a bullpen arm for the Yankees in particular to be that X factor to really change much with this team.
I agree.
On offense, the guys at the bottom of the lineup, like Gleyber Torres becoming the hitter where he was when he hit all those home runs against Baltimore and had 38 home runs in the juice ball era. Like, I'd love to see him start hitting again. He definitely is an X factor, but he's not really what I included, right? So I'm looking at the bottom of the lineup. I'm being like, well, one of you guys has to hit because Judge and Soto and Wells, they've been good enough that if you get 4 guys hitting, this offense can really hit anybody. So then I go to the starting rotation. And I think the X factor for the Yankees, a guy who has looked better lately, is Carlos Rodon. If I'm looking at the Yankees starting rotation, like, I know Garrett Cole is returning from an injury. I know he's got a 4.7 ERA, but he is coming off back-to-back pretty damn good starts. And Rodon has looked good too. But we forget, When Rodon is on, he is one of the better left-handed pitchers in Major League Baseball. So I think that is what will separate the Yankees in the playoffs. Is it Garrett Cole and then another ace? Or is it Garrett Cole and a struggling Carlos Rodon? Because I think if it's a struggling Carlos Rodon, the Yankees got to win a lot of 7-6 games, and that's really hard to do in the playoffs, especially when you're facing another team's number 2 if that guy is on a heater. So I think Carlos Rodon is the biggest X factor for the Yankees, especially because I don't know if I can truly rely on Stroman. I like Nestor, but I don't know if I can truly rely on him in a big time playoff spot. I
It's
need Rodon to be the guy that the Yankees paid.
I agree with you in the sense that like I think those guys can give you a quality start in the
Yeah,
playoffs, no doubt about it. But in terms of like we need 6-0s, like we need a domination, like a dominating start because it's a must-win ball game. Our bullpen was taxed last game. Um, Rodon's a guy that's capable of doing that. Right? Like
yeah,
he's
yeah.
capable of overpowering. We just saw it the other day. Like when he's on, as you said, like he still gives you the flashes of that guy that looked like one of the best left-handers in baseball. So I like that one a lot. I was looking at the offensive side, just because I can see, and I mean, you've seen this already so many times this year, where I mean, it's clear no one's going to pitch to Judge, and especially in the playoffs, they're going to let somebody else beat him. Of course, there's going to be spots where you have to, but Judge can't do it by himself. That's where Soto comes in. That's great, but even then, you can't have two hitters carrying your entire lineup. And there's so many games where I'm watching the Yankees, and it's like, who else are you afraid of? It's been really nice to see Austin Wells pick it up. It's been great to see Giancarlo Stanton back and kind of carrying his weight a little bit. But I look at the outfield situation. And like, I don't have any confidence that Verdugo is going to turn it around. I don't have much confidence even that Glaber is going to turn it around. And I wanted to go with Glaber as an X factor because it was also like, how are you going to be remembered? How do you want to be remembered as a Yankee? Do you want to be remembered as the guy that said, I don't play third base and then, not play well and leave and go, sign wherever you sign? But honestly, like, I think he's going to be at this point. Like, I don't really see anything tangibly changing. And even if they do pick it up a little bit, what does that look like? A 110 WRC plus? To me, that's not an X factor.
Agreed.
I'm going to get a little bit creative here, and I'm going to go Jason Dominguez. And I wasn't going to do that before Jazz got hurt. But now that Jazz is hurt, this team really still needs that speedy, dynamic player again. What Jazz was bringing to the table for this team was everything they needed, right? Like, and that's why I love the addition so much. Even if Jazz wasn't lighting it up consistently, though he was hitting for power, like the defensive versatility that he brought was important, even if he isn't a great third baseman. And then the power, the speed, being able to create runs when your offense stagnates, like those were all things that they sorely needed. Dominguez, I mean, he has the ability to do a little bit of everything. And I know it's a really steep ask as an X factor, but I don't think it's that steep to ask him to be better than Trent Grisham and Alex Verdugo and what they've been getting from the outfield position in general. And all three outfield spots, really. It's been a little bit of a slow return in the first, 7-8 games since he's really come back. But I do think that this is a guy that once he gets rolling, and he looked really good before the oblique, like once he gets rolling again, I think they're going to bring him up. And I mean, the power, speed, and defense combination at all three spots, like he can be a spark for them that I think more reasonably impacts the game across the board than a Verdugo or a Glaber or some of these other guys. Again, tall ask, but I just think that that's a guy that could really be a difference maker.
It's so funny because I went like this. For all those watching on YouTube, I went like this. And the reason I did was he was my first thought when I was thinking about the offensive X factors for the Yankees. But then I had a second thought. Damn it, are we at the spot where like the X factor is a player that's not even on the team right now? The team that has 71 wins, it's first place in the American League East. And then what is that impact truly like when he comes up? But the way you just broke it down, like that got me fired up a little bit. And I'm down to make him the X factor. I just think, let's say he comes up and he is good. If Rodon is bad, the Yankees are done.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of where I was sitting, where I was like, let's say he does come up and he gives you what Verdugo was doing when he was hot at the very beginning of the year. And I think that's a more than reasonable ask for a guy who's recovering from an injury and coming up in September to help a postseason run when every team the Yankees are going to face, they're going to be gunning for you and they're going to try and dominate this kid. But if he is solid. Let's say he's good. If Rodon's bad, we're done. So I think that's where I land. But I love the Dominguez pull. I do.
No, it's valid too, because I mean, on the pitching side, right? Like Luis Heel is just, how much longer can he go in terms of these innings? Like
Yeah.
he's got to be running out of gas sooner rather than later. And it's just a tall ask for Stroman or Nestor, like we said, to be what these other guys were. I just, when I looked at the outfield situation and now with the injury to Jazz,
Yeah.
like he could be that difference maker in the lineup. I agree though. Like it's especially in the playoffs, like, and especially just even with Cole not being 100%, they really need someone to step up. So I do think that Rodon's more important, but I think just to be different, I do think Dominguez can be a big time game changer for them. And you'll get the stolen base side with Jazz out, aside from Anthony Volpe. Do you know how many stolen bases the next most is? And who has them?
Like 6.
6.
Yeah.
Aaron Judge has 6. I know
Yeah.
stolen bases aren't a huge part of it. Like it's not that important, but when you need to, in the playoffs, when you need 90 feet and you need to manufacture runs, especially when they don't want to pitch to guys and things like that, like you got to get runs other ways. And, speed and getting an extra 90 is going to be a big part of that.
Yeah. The reason I know it's 6 is because I was looking at that the other day, and the fact that it's still 6 is there we go with the Yankees. All right, let's talk about the Baltimore Orioles. I have an X factor that's kind of dumb, but I still believe in it. I still do. I think Craig Kimbrell's the X factor for the Orioles. Yeah. And I know that a reliever being an X factor, Peter, that's stupid. And I know it's stupid. But what I will say is, I didn't really find a piece on offense that I thought was a major X factor. The name that I kind of came to was Jordan Westburg a little bit, just because he's been out, putting his bat back in the lineup. I just love the player that Jordan Westburg is. Then I looked at the rotation and I was like, all right, a couple guys could step up here, but who's it going to be? I wasn't exactly sure. So then I went to the bullpen, and then I was realizing like the Orioles are going to be really good and there's going to be some close games at the end. Does Craig Kimbrell get those saves or does he not? Because I thought it was fascinating that the Orioles, this deadline, they addressed the starting pitching. They even addressed the offense, getting a guy like Eloy Jimenez, but they didn't really address the bullpen. And I know Kimbrell has had a good year, but I have also seen Craig Kimbrell in a lot of high leverage moments lately where it really, really matters. And I'm telling you, nobody makes my heart start beating faster than Craig Kimbrell. And I am a fan of the New York Yankees with Clay Holmes as our closer. So that's where I sit with that. I think he is enormous. Absolutely enormous. Because if he starts laying eggs in the playoffs, they're done. I truly think, I think they're going to be in a lot of pretty close games. And I think that he is going to be massively important for them. But again, I understand that it's kind of dumb.
Sir Anthony Dominguez and Gregory Soto weren't enough in the bullpen for you?
No, they were not. I know that Sir Anthony Dominguez has been good for them, but if we're talking about the 9th inning, the hardest 3 outs to get, that guy raises my blood pressure, and I've been saying it all year long, and I hope it doesn't come at a bad spot for the Orioles' sake. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I mean, then it's pretty much all on Yenny or Cano at that point, and Sir Anthony. And to your point,
but the thing is, the reason I bring it up is it won't be on them. Let's say they get through their innings and it's a 5-4 game in the 9th, and Craig Kimbrell comes in and I'm not worried about those guys. I'm worried about the 9th inning, those last 3 outs. I think they're going to get their jobs done. It's those outs that I'm looking at.
It is sketchy when you look across the bullpen right now, where Sir Anthony been better, but 4 ERA still. Cano's the only sub-3 guy. Perez has a 4.21. Kimbrell's got the 3.35. Soto's a 5.6. It gets shaky quick. Birch Smith has been honestly one of their better relievers since they picked him up. I think the Marlins DFA'd him. So I honestly don't think it's that crazy. Because they need to close games out here, and it's rocky. I just at risk of not picking the same one, because I do think that is a good one. And man, if they had Felix Bautista back in time, wouldn't that be wonderful?
Oh yeah.
I really think they should take a long, hard look at bringing up Chase McDermott and putting him in a relief role. And I'm not saying that you close him, But if he looks good enough to be in the 7th, then you can bump, Cano back an inning and or give him the 9th a little bit more and see how it goes. But I mean, McDermott out of the pen would be great. I look at the rotation and, when you have Grayson Rodriguez banged up right now, you hope he'll be back. Bradish being out, who is that clear cut, 2 for you as well. It's really Corbin Burns, and I know Albert Suarez has been great, and I think it's been fine from Zach Eflin, but like they don't really have that clear cut who gets the ball in game 2 right now. And I similar to your Yankees point, like Zach Eflin's flashed it, not to the degree of Rodon, but we were talking about Eflin last year as like one of the more impressive pitchers. The underlying stuff was fantastic, but the surface level numbers were great as well. Guy had a 3.02 expected ERA last season. Ran one of the lowest walk rates in the sport and struck out 27% of batters. Like he was fantastic. He's been a little bit hurt this year, and I think he's been pitching through some discomfort. And I think that's held him back some. Fastball's been down like a half tick, which I do think affects sinkers quite a bit. But he's still been solid. And over the last couple outings, he's been really pretty darn good. If he can be closer or anything close to what we saw from him last year, like if he can recapture that Zach Eflin that looked like a bona fide number 2 last year, like that's enough, I think, to really push them up, because I just do look at the who gets the ball in game 2 situation here right now. And it just, I don't have a clear cut obvious answer. It's just G-Rod if he's healthy, but assume G-Rod's not available. But even then, like G-Rod hasn't been lighting it up either when he is healthy. Like they really need Eflin to be that guy, I think, and match whoever's number 2 they're going to be facing.
I think that's the answer. You know how I kind of glossed over and I was going through, I was like, oh, the starting pitchers, a couple guys stepped up. There was Zach Eflin there. And I think that was the answer. But there's something in the back of my brain. It's just burrowing in there. It's like a little bug just got in my ear, crawled up into my brain, and keeps hitting that little nerve that has Craig Kimbrell memories in it. And it's just, don't forget, don't forget, don't forget. And now Orioles fans, like, I've brought this up multiple times, and every single time they're in the comment section being like, he's been great. He's been great. What are you talking about? For all those watching on YouTube, my hands are up. I'm just telling you my fears. I'm rooting for you. I want to see this young revolution go win a World Series. It would be awesome. Be great for the sport. Be great for the city of Baltimore. But my hands are still up. That's all I'm going to say. All right, let's go over.
Sorry, last thing too.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Kimbrel's velocity kind of like slowly been tapering a little bit as the season's progressed too. So it's just something to monitor there too. So I think it's a very valid fear. I mean, this guy has just not been as consistent as he was in his prime. He's still very solid, but he's not lights out Kimbrel.
And you know what's awesome? If I'm wrong, that means the Orioles bullpen is like locking shit down. Yes. And then if they're locking shit down, they are a tough out. I mean, they're a tough out against anybody.
And this will, like, we had the Hall of Fame conversation. If he's shutting the door and they make that run, like that's a legacy postseason for him that I think really cements it.
100%. And then I can get that bug out of my ear and flick it away and just be like, you had those fears for no reason, but I may have a reason. We'll see. All right, let's go to the Boston Red Sox. For me, I look at the offense and I don't see like a pure X factor. Almost, there's a part of me that almost is like Rafael Devers is an X factor, just because like he has carried this offense. I know that that's unfair to guys like Wilyer Abreu and Yoshida and O'Neill, and there's probably others that off the top of my head I'm not mentioning. The offense has been good, but Devers is just such an incredible hitter sitting in the middle of the lineup, and you can't walk him because he'll swing at bad pitches and he'll take those bad pitches 110 the opposite way. He's just such an unbelievable hitter that I wanted to cop out and go with him, but I didn't. And I just didn't really choose anyone from the offense.
No. And I'm glad you didn't, because they're going to get Casas back.
Yeah.
Obviously Jaron Duran's been one of the best hitters in,
I don't know
baseball, and they weathered the 2-game suspension storm there. The offense has actually been insanely good.
It's been good.
Trevor Story's taking ground balls. I don't know what that means. But like if he comes back in any capacity too. But I mean, dude, Connor Wong slashing 295, 352, 441. What the hell is that? Yeah, that offense has been more than good enough.
So I assume that maybe you might have You might mention Tristan Casas. I think he's a pretty damn good X factor, but my
Yeah.
X factor for the Red Sox is Brian Bayo. Because when I look at the rotation, Houck's been struggling. Doesn't look like that same ace that he was in the first half. I think Nick Pivetta and Cutter Crawford just are who they are at this point. Like, I think they're low fours ERA guys, maybe high threes. They'll have that start with 10 Ks, 6 shutty, look fantastic, and then the next start is 5 earned in 6 innings. I think they're both at that age where it's like, these are kind of just who you guys are. But Brian Bayo on the other side has flashed number 2 level upside. He has. And luckily, he has a really good win-loss record because the Red Sox have hit in his starts. It has nothing to do with him. It has to do with the Red Sox offense in those specific spots. But Brian Bayo has objectively not been that great this year. But he can be. And that's what I think can propel the Red Sox. When you're just getting like standard good production from Pivetta and Crawford, and when Houck is regressing a little bit, because I think Red Sox fans can say, Houck, what you gave us this year is unbelievable. Like, we understand if you aren't at the top of your level towards the latter half of the season. But a guy on the flip side who has been banged up, has not been very good, can then flip back and help Tanner Houck and elongate that rotation again. I think Brian Bayo is huge for the Red Sox moving forward. Like, their offense is going to hit, but in those games where you're not, like, you need good starts from Brian Bayo. And I thought one that illustrated that was that game against the Rangers, where he wasn't great, but a team won the game and the bats came to play. And I just think Brian Bayo is the X factor here for the Red Sox.
I like that one too. It's pretty much where I was looking. I was considering Pivetta because I think I agree on Cutter Crawford. Like, he just is what he is. Pivetta is kind of that sense too, but when he's dialed, like, he'll have those stretches
Great
where it's
when dialed.
crazy,
Yeah.
but then he always hits that wall
And
again
also
too.
with Pavetta, it does seem like it's not a prolonged stretch of domination. It's like that one start where he goes 7 innings, 1 hit, 12 Ks, where you're like, holy shit, Pavetta. And then the next start is not good. Like, I haven't seen prolonged stretches of dominance from Pavetta. And I haven't seen dominance per se from Bale, but I've seen some really good starts back to back months of solid production. And that's what I need from Brian Bale.
And Pivetta has to miss bats to be successful, right? Whereas Brian Bayo can pitch to contact, get ground balls, and massages. What even when and he strikes guys out a decent clip. Like, it's almost 1 per inning for a sinker guy. Like, it's not bad. But when he's on, like, he's doing both. But if he can even just be a low fours guy for them, like, that would be enough, because the way that they hit, as you mentioned, and the way that they've been able to just put up runs in droves, like, just give them a chance and have a rotation that, if you're not going to have those frontline guys, 1 through 4/5, like, at least we'll give you a chance to win if you put up some numbers. Like, if you score 5 runs, you got a good shot to win. And I think there's been stretches here where they got to score 7 or 8 because they're just not getting much from, the rotation. And then the bullpen is not great until you get to the back end, especially with Justin Slayton out. So I'm with you. It has to be Bayo. And we've seen stretches where when he's, really locked in, he gets a lot of ground balls and he can fly through games and get deep into them pretty quickly. Like, that's what he's got to do. And he's just 25. So, like, something could still click. Yeah. I think we've seen him be better of late. So I think that's the obvious one. And I know we've tried to, like, have 2 different ones, but this is one where I don't really see how you can go in any other direction other than right here for Brian Bayo.
The only other direction I think that you could go is Tristan Casas when he does come back. The thing is, have you been following his rehab? Like, a couple weeks ago, I mean, he's talking about, like, how much the rib hurts, and it's like he's getting shot, and everything.
Well, no, it was like he's getting shot. Now it's only like he's getting stabbed.
I don't understand his rhetoric at all. Whenever it comes out, I don't understand his antics. I'm not trying to hate on the guy. He just weirds me out.
Yeah,
Hands are back up. He weirds me out. I don't understand it.
Bird.
Yeah, he's a unique guy. Weird is the wrong word. Unique is a better word.
He's
Nicer
definitely
word.
a little weird.
Maybe a little weird. But regardless, we know what we're talking about here. But the reason I didn't come to him being an X factor is I fully expect him to perform when he's back.
Yeah.
And I also don't think that him performing when he's back makes this Red Sox offense from decent to above average. They're already great. So just adding another great hitter is great and it makes you better. But I don't think he, like, even if he struggles, I think the Red Sox offense is still good enough. So that's why I think Bayo is such an important piece, and I think you agree with me.
Yeah, you got to get outs, and we know they're going to score runs. Like they're ninth in WRC plus, and I think that's climbing. And they've got other reinforcements still coming back. Like it really is just about the getting out side of things, and especially because their defense has just been so brutal this year too. Like if that's going to continue to be brutal, you need guys that are just going to go out there and get weak contact or miss bats.
Tampa Bay Rays, their X factor. For me, my eyes just continue to gravitate towards the same guy. The man with a 932 OPS last year and a 722 OPS this year. Yandy Diaz, I'm going to need you to step the fuck up. Let's start getting rolling here. And if you look at the underlying batted ball metrics, still hitting the ball hard. It's just, damn it, he's got a 56% ground ball rate. Now, he's been able to hedge that. Like in recent years, right? He put up a 932 OPS last year with a 52% ground ball rate. And he's still hitting the ball hard, not quite at the level of last year, but the man in terms of average exit velocity is in the 92nd percentile. Hard hit rate, 92nd percentile. He's squaring up balls. It's just more of them are on the ground this year. He hit 330 last year. He's hitting 270 this year. He had a 410 OBP last year, 327 this year. 522 slug, 395 this year. This wasn't a guy in Yandy Diaz who was like, all right, we expected a little bit of aggression here. Like we were fully in on Yandy Diaz having, again, another great year. And it just hasn't exactly materialized yet. And when I go through kind of his splits, like, is he hitting better lately? Like, not really. It's been going down. In June, he put up an 819 OPS, 763 in July, 718 in August. But can you put up a couple of 800 OPS months? Easily he can. We need that now. And we almost need 900 OPS for the Rays to really have a shot here. So I'm looking at the best hitter in the lineup being like, it's on you right now. Right? We know the Rays, there's a lot of weird guys in the lineup who maybe you've never heard of, or they trade for your favorite team's worst player, and you're like, oh, you idiot, Rays. And then he hits a home run in his first game with Tampa. Like, there's so many moving pieces here. But the one stalemate, the one guy they kept is Yandy Diaz. You, sir, need to start hitting. He's my X factor.
Yeah, I mean, he's was one of the most productive hitters in baseball last year, and this is a lineup that, I mean, you look at it's not good. It is not a good lineup.
Weird. Like it's
weird,
gross.
and it's really not good. So I was just looking at it from the perspective of like what could actually change something for this team offensively. Of course, Yandy hitting better, but at least he hasn't been terrible. Morel has been atrocious since he homered in like the first two games with them.
One guy who is hitting very well is Brandon Lau, especially in the power department. But he's got nobody on base because Yandy Diaz doesn't get on base at a 400 clip anymore.
Yep. I'm looking like who's the one player that can just ignite this team?
And Josh Lowe can too.
Josh Lowe, I love.
Yeah.
And he's been banged up a lot of the year.
Yeah.
When he's hot, he can really go. But he's also a guy that you're still going to shelter from lefties. So it's like, And those are the games that I guess Dylan Carlson will play. Junior Caminero, can you come up and it's so unfair to make him an X factor the same way it's unfair to Jason Dominguez. But can you come up and light it up? They brought him up 10 days early. And I mean that by if the Rays had brought him up 10 days later, he would preserve his rookie eligibility. And then next year, if he finishes in the top 2 in rookie of the year voting, they would, have that compensation pick. For whatever reason, they brought him up 10 days before that. And I assume that's because they're seeing the season slip away. I wonder if it does slip away and they know it's over with 10 days left, if they send him back down, or that would be too obvious. Regardless, they brought him up for a reason. It's to spark this team. He hit a ball 116 miles per hour, by the way.
I was just about to say, did you notice who led exit velocity leaderboards yesterday?
Like it was an error, like by definition. But I think if you hit a ball over 115 miles an hour, it's auto hit. I don't care if the guy fumbled it, kicked it, and then punted it into the stands. It's a hit.
116.
Yeah, it's 116.
116 in his first game. He's 21 years old. Jack and I were talking about him on yesterday's show, and the night before, I stayed up really late, and I was watching Junior Caminero highlights, like not even film, just highlights, like, which doesn't even like help. I was just obsessed with
Just getting
watching
fired
Shaw's
up.
highlights. Yeah. And I defined his pop as stupid. Like, it
Yes.
makes me feel dumb. Like the way he's able to pull an 82-mile-an-hour changeup and like it not look like a home run, like not look like an A swing, and he hits it 440. And I feel stupid because it's like I don't understand it. That's the level of pop I feel like he has. If he just runs into a couple, like he's the number one prospect in baseball for a reason.
If he gets hot, man, like that, it's a guy with. He's the only guy that you can add, and you might not tap into it immediately, but they just added a guy into the lineup who has 40 home run upside.
Yep.
Like you don't get to do that very often. And I was actually talking about it with our video editor extraordinaire Peyton, and it's like it's almost like Teoscar Hernandez if you with more power. So like if you somehow have more power than Teoscar Hernandez, like that's kind of what it looks like. That guy getting hot can be a game changer for an offense that features Ben Rortvedt, Johnny DeLuca, Taylor Walls, Jose Siri, and Christopher Morel.
I was just internalizing that as you were talking. The 21-year-old has more power than the guy who won the home run derby. Like,
Yes.
it just happened to be Teoscar Hernandez this year. I'm not saying he's the most powerful man in baseball, but that puts things into perspective real well. All right, let's go to the American League Central, and then we got the American League West. But in the meantime, let's take a quick break. All right, let's get back to American League X Factors for contenders, and we start with the Cleveland Guardians. Now, I think that there are a lot of good options for the Guardians when I look at their roster. You look on the mound, there's a couple of starting pitchers that if one of them steps up, I think that's huge. The bullpen, not really, because they're all awesome. The offense, though, my eyes go to one player. And it's been going to this one player for a while now when I'm evaluating the Guardians. Andres Gimenez, dude. You gotta hit. I mean, you signed this extension, and I understand that you're all world defensively. I get it. But just a few years ago, you were one of the best second basemen in the league offensively. And it was just awesome that you were good defensively, but people cared about the bat. Where has that gone? I don't think it's just he's now less talented. It's still in there. But do you have Andres Gimenez's stats in front of you?
Yep.
Read me the slash line because it sucks.
Yeah. I mean, even if he was last year's numbers, he'd be a 4-win player.
Exactly.
254, 302, 333, a
That
281
cannot
WOBA.
That cannot happen.
5 homers.
Just point blank cannot happen. Now I know the Guardians, like, we need the pitching, and the offense has been good. I get it. But come playoff time, you need some big time bats. And Kwan is the man, Jose Ramirez is the man, Josh Naylor is the man. But you need a little bit more. Because I love Steven Kwan, but it's not often that he's going to hit the big home run to get you guys there. He's going to table set. He's going to lead off with a single and hope that Jose Ramirez and Josh Naylor do their jobs. Jose Ramirez is on a planet of his own. Josh Naylor, I'm looking at you, but he's had a good regular season, so I'm not like him getting a lot better. I don't think is the X factor, but a guy who is a legitimate 140 WRC plus guy, which is 40% better than the league average hitter at second base, you need to step up. Andres Gimenez has to be the guy to step up in this offense.
That's who I had on the offensive side for sure. And I mean, 81 WRC plus, man, like it's just not gonna fly.
Nope,
not gonna fly. Especially because and the offense right now is league average, which is probably slightly above, like 100 WRC plus. Solid with the way that they're built, but the offense should be above average. Like he's legitimately weighing them down at this point because he's going to play every single freaking day. And there's not a lot of players who are going to play every single freaking day with an 81 WRC plus. Who usually be platoon guys, utility guys, whatever. He's playing every day. He's got 465 plate appearances. That's the third most on the team, behind only Jose Ramirez, Josh Naylor. So, I mean, like this guy's in the lineup every single day, and he is well below average offensively. So, no, I think that's a no-brainer. And he would really elongate the lineup because, I mean, you look at the top, it's pretty solid, but yeah, it drops off pretty quickly, and you need other guys to be able to produce. So I like that one a lot. I was looking at the pitching side as well because, you know, Tanner Bybee, I think, is is their guy right now. Like
He's the man.
he's their ace. And Ben Lively's been a great third option. Like I think he's a solid third option for them during the regular season. The playoffs, I don't think so. But
He can't pitch in the playoffs. I'm sorry.
it,
And the
it
Ben Lively story's been great, but if you've been watching him lately,
uh, who's going to throw game 3?
Gavin's got to go game 2, and
Exactly.
then yeah,
And then he pieced it together. But that's why I think it's even more important for Gavin to be Gavin. So that's my X factor, because he looked shaky when he came back from injury, and it was not great. We saw several bad outings, to be honest, as he just kind of worked back, got his fastball velocity back, the command started to creep back. But now, I know it wasn't a great outing against the Orioles. I think that was just a product of him just running into a buzzsaw of an offense and a couple big swings. He still struck out 8 in that one. His fastball's crept back up to 98 on average over the last 2 starts. And if you look at his last four starts, just been much more effective in terms of missing bats, and looks like the Gavin Williams that we really got excited about last year. He's got to be that dude. Like he's got to be doing what Tanner Bybee's doing. And I think he's more than capable of putting up Tanner Bybee numbers, which is a 3.4 ERA, strikeouts, doesn't walk a ton of guys. Like I think that's what we can see from him, but they need that because, as we just talked about, you already know you're at a disadvantage in game 3 against no matter almost anyone, whoever you're playing. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a playoff matchup for them where they would have somehow an advantage in game 3. I don't know what it would be. Maybe Alex Cobb starts to come along a little bit further. He did not look good in his first outing with them. Matt
Alex
Boyd
Cobb
actually
believer.
turned in a decent one in his first outing back.
That Boyd looked good.
Yeah.
He did. Kind of
So
fired
like
me up.
maybe, but like again, those are all like we're trying to figure out 3. Who's going to be the third guy? You need 2 to be good, and I think Gavin's gotta grab that 2 spot and hold on and be a dog there.
This season, dude, I have fallen in love with the Guardians and the Brewers because they destroy the common mold of what you think a successful baseball team is.
Yeah.
And I just can't get over it. It just doesn't make any sense to anybody. You look at the Guardians pitching staff, like compare them to the Twins on paper. Twins are way better. The Royals on paper. Might take the Royals. But
In
who's
terms of their
atop
starting
division?
rotation, no doubt.
Like the Twins were on an absolute heater. And the Guardians were playing really shitty baseball. And they met for a series. And they split. Like that is just awesome.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Twins. For the next team on the X Factor list. This one is sort of tough. So I kind of
I have the lamest answer. I have the lamest answer ever, but I stand by it.
We might have the same answer then. Royce Lewis is the X factor for this team.
Ooh, I got a different one.
Oh, you do? Okay, good. The reason I think Royce Lewis is an X factor for this team is I don't have to bring up any number. If you watch Twins baseball, you see the lineup with Royce Lewis in it, and you see the lineup without it. Now, the lineup without it, there are a lot of guys who have stepped up here. Like Wallner hits the living piss out of the baseball every time. He just crushes baseballs. Larnach has stepped up. Castro has stepped up. Like Correa being hurt, and he's definitely a big X factor, and that might be your answer. But Royce Lewis on a 162 game pace is a 60 home run guy. Our Twitter account just tweeted out a few days ago. That's the level of hitter that is in that lineup when healthy. And right now he's healthy. And look at the run totals the Twins are putting up. They're absurd. They put up 8 runs a game. Please, for the love of everything that is holy, Royce Lewis, stay healthy. Because we saw what he looked like in the playoffs. This dude carries offenses by himself. In the playoffs, there's like 4 guys who I could even name who I think can do that. And then you take him out of the lineup, I got a lot less faith in the Twins. I do. So I think Royce Lewis is, I know it's a cop-out answer because he's so freaking good, and I feel like everybody knows that. But damn it, he's still my X factor.
I mean, when we're talking about a player that when he's on, not only is he their best hitter, he's one of the best most productive hitters in baseball. So talking about a guy that's not very available. And then when he is available, is dominant, 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 15 home runs and 165 plate appearances. Like it's a joke. So I'm with you there. I think on the offensive side, without a doubt, uh, I, and I probably would have went with him had Joe Ryan not gone down.
Mm.
Then Joe Ryan goes down and I find myself, and maybe if it's the same issue with a lot of different teams, then maybe it's not as much of a problem. But you know, Joe Ryan, the Pablo Lopez, Joe Ryan, Bailey Ober trio felt great about, and then Simeon Woods Richardson, and whoever else you want to, Zebby Matthews, whatever to fill
stuff.
it out.
Yeah.
Now Joe Ryan goes down, and you were able to kind of overcome, I think, the shortcomings of Pablo Lopez so far this year because of the fact that Joe Ryan was throwing well and Bailey Ober has been fantastic. Now it's Pablo Lopez and it's Bailey Ober. I like Ober a lot. Bailey Ober can't be your best performing pitcher when you get to the playoffs. And we know that Pablo Lopez can be a frontline guy. He can be the top of a rotation. But we haven't seen that this year at all. The underlying stats are strong. And Jack and I were just talking about that. But with Joe Ryan out now, Pablo Lopez needs to pick it up. And he's got to take this rotation by the reins and go. He's got to set the tone when they get to the playoffs or, every fifth day here. Because I do feel good about the way that they can piece together this rotation to get through the rest of the season. Because I love Zebby Matthews, because David Fest I still do believe in. Simeon Woods Richardson's been great, but playoffs, getting there and performing there, like you need Pablo Lopez to pitch like Pablo Lopez. Otherwise, you're very reliant on your offense and your bullpen. So that's one for me where it's just he can't have a 4-7. Like if Pablo Lopez is pitching the way that he's pitching right now, I know he was better last time out. I just don't see how they get enough outs. Like I just don't see how they're able to keep enough runs off the board, unless they get some out of body experience from Zebby Matthews or something like that.
Quick tangent, but still on the Twins, topic. Zebby Matthews is kind of impressive.
He's so fun.
What? I when I watch Zebby Matthews, I'm not like, oh, like you're this amazing talent. I mean, you could be an ace in this league. But I was like, I think you're going to pitch in Major League Baseball for 15 years. And the reason I was saying that was there are little things, in my opinion, when I watch guys that are important to me that are so underneath anybody's cares that maybe they don't even kind of realize it. But there was a few instances in this game that make me think that you're a gamer. There's a runner on base, and there's 2 outs, and Bobby Witt Jr. comes out to the plate. And now, at this moment, Zebby was in a little bit of a tough, he was in the middle of a tough kind of inning. And I say, go after him, Zebby. Go after him. Don't try and pitch around him. 2 pitches right in the middle of the zone, gets Bobby Witt to fly out. I'm like, that's a guy with balls. Like, that's a guy who has confidence in their stuff. And there was another moment in the game where it was a 3-2 count to a guy at the bottom of the order. And the command was kind of getting a little bit shaky. But what he does, and I'm like, throw him a cookie down the middle, Zebby. Like, you have a big lead. Like, that's what a veteran would do in this situation. They wouldn't try and get cute. They wouldn't try and show him the best pitch on a 3-2 pitch. Give him a cookie and see what he does. He did, and the guy flew out. Like, I was like, those little things I think are so big for a guy making his debut. Like, that's the thing you see from a guy who's 30, who's been in the league for a while. It's like, I dare you to hit this shit. Like, a guy like Lance Lynn, I will always respect because he's like, I dare you. Like, it's hard to hit in Major League Baseball. 95 down the middle, still 95. Like, I dare you to hit it. And that's what Zebby Matthews is doing. I wasn't, like, wowed by the slider. I wasn't wowed by the fastball. I was wowed by his there was like people call it like an old soul. Like, I think Zebby Matthews is an old soul when it comes to pitching. And I really appreciated it.
Well, it always helps when you have 119 strikeouts in the season and 7 walks.
Just goes after guys.
He's not going to beat himself. And that was when we talked about, like, the only thing I was concerned about was like, okay, the long ball might bite him, but I'd rather him fill up the zone and get beat. And the thing is the fastball has good characteristics. So, like, you can get away with missing over the middle sometimes. And he hits spots with his other stuff. Like, He's not going to beat himself, and clearly did that. I mean, if he gives them starts like that, where it's 5 innings, a 2-run ball, like that's all they really need out of their third, fourth guy. But again, like who's going to be the guy that sets the tone? It might be Bailey Ober, but like then who? So Pablo Lopez needs to pick it up and lead that rotation.
Kansas City Royals is an interesting one. Who was your X factor? Because I was pretty confused. I mean, I could just give you mine right now, but this is a tough one.
I went with MJ Melendez.
Interesting.
Because this outfield is the worst offensively in Major League Baseball. 77 WRC plus by the outfield. Stinky. And MJ Melendez has been probably the streakiest hitter in Major League Baseball this year. He's on the upswing now, though. He's been much better of late, and actually homered off of Zebby yesterday. But I look at the outfield situation. I don't think Hunter Renfroe is going to pick it up. I don't think Kyle Isbell is going to look much different than he's looked. So who's going to be the difference maker in that outfield? I thought about Vinny Pasquantino, but Vinny's just been slightly above league average the last couple of years. And I don't know if there's the ebbs and flows as much yet. MJ Melendez is either like get him out of the lineup or dialed in like this guy's raking. And there hasn't really been any in between. He's dialed in right now, and I think the offense has been much better for it. They don't really have any other options on the bench. Like, what are you going to put Adam Frazier out there, Garrett Hampson? Like, just steep drop off. So when you look at an outfield that has a 77 WRC plus as a unit, and the one guy that has given you flashes of well above average offense when he's dialed in, I look at MJ Melendez and led the minor leagues in home runs. Like when this guy's on, like he's got 30 home run potential. It just he gets so cold that it just becomes too hard to compile that many homers. He's got 18 this year, or excuse me, 14 this year. And that's with a ridiculously prolonged slump. So I think if MJ can get going, really helps elongate that lineup that I get worried, like similar to what we're talking about with the Yankees, but I think even more dramatic where, yeah, Bobby Witt Jr., you're not letting that guy beat you. Of course, you don't want to put him on as much because he's so fast, but you're not letting him beat you. Salvador Perez is good, but he's easier to get out when you execute your game plan. He swings at everything. So like it can be a very one-dimensional top-heavy lineup. MJ Melendez is an 863 OPS over his last 40 games. If he keeps that up, that adds another dimension to this lineup that, has been very top-heavy for much of the year.
Couldn't agree with you more. Love where your head's at with MJ Melendez. I think that's a great one. And you mentioned this guy, and you didn't think that he was quite an X factor. Well, let me try and convince you of him. I think Vinny Pasquantino is the X factor for this team. Because when I watch the Royals, Salvi is not the best protection for Bobby Witt Jr. Like Bobby Witt needs someone behind him and you're going to get that lefty, right? Because you want to separate the lefties and the righties. So like Vinny has been hitting behind Bobby Witt Jr. all season long. And when Vinny is behind Bobby Witt and Vinny is not hitting, there is absolutely no reason to pitch to Bobby Witt Jr. And now I know that Bobby Witt Jr. can affect the game on the base pass. He's one of the best players in the sport. He's amazing. But Vinny Pasquantino has the ability to be one of the better hitters in the playoffs, period. In April of last year, the guy put up a 900 OPS. Now, he hasn't really had a month like that this season so far, but things are looking up. He's got an 844 OPS in the second half so far, hitting 300. Like, that's what Vinny can do. Remember, you said that punch me in the face if Vinny doesn't become like a great hitter? That's still in there. Everybody sees it. So can Vinny Pasquantino be the guy who's not only hitting 300, but is also sending balls out of the ballpark? He's got that in him. And then you kind of have to pitch to Bobby Witt Jr. a little bit because you don't really want Bobby Witt Jr. on base for Vinny Pasquantino. And with Salvi, like, I think he just is what he is. Like, you hope that if both of them are on, he hits the home run. He might ground into the double player strikeout too. Like, he is what he is. But can Vinny be the protection that Bobby Witt needs to make not only Vinny better, but then Bobby better in return? I think Vinny is huge for this offense.
100%. I mean, that's the other guy I was looking at. It's just, he's been like consistently slightly above average, which is the one reason why I went to the more volatile
way better
play.
than that.
Yeah, he's so much better. His contact rates are insane for
Insane.
how big and powerful he is. The chase rates are egregious, and that's what's really been holding him back. If he's more patient, man, I think that could be all the difference. I would love to see him get hot, and I mean, as you mentioned, he's got the ability. You marry those contact rates and the power, like he's got the ability to mash with the best of them. It's just dependent on the approach. So hopefully he gets that right. But I mean, he does have the upside to still be a one of the better hitters. Like I really do believe that. So I think that's another great one.
And the reason I'm also bringing it up is I have a ton of respect for Vinny. So I feel comfortable in saying that, following that sentence, being like, a first baseman with a 757 OPS, if you're a playoff team, is just not good enough.
Mm-mm.
That's your three hitter. You can't have a 757 OPS. You just can't do it. Right. And also, the home road splits have also been really tough for this team. Like, and again, he's another guy. He's got an 817 OPS at Kauffman and a 690 OPS on the road. I think the X factor for this team is, can you play on the road?
Yeah.
But if we had to pick
Yeah.
a player, like, I'm going with Vinny because I know that he's got it in him to be a fantastic three hitter. He's got a 520 slug. He's hitting 300 in the second half so far. Keep that up, and I think there's even room for more. All right, let's go to the American League West. We only have two teams here. The Astros, like, who is their X factor, right? Like, we know the guys at the top. We know they're going to hit. And you could just say Kyle Tucker's the X factor, right? He's returning from an injury, even though the shin contusions kept him out for what seems like 50 years at this point. Like,
Yeah.
I need Kyle Tucker back on the Astros. And I look at the rotation, like you say, Kikuchi has stepped up, and I'm sure that you'll bring up a pitcher. So I kind of wanted to stick to the offense here, but I didn't want to go with the obvious. So I went with the guy that freaking won a World Series MVP, Jeremy Pena. Because when Jeremy Pena gets hot, he can win a World Series MVP.
Yeah.
And when I'm looking at the Astros lineup, like, is it going to be the Astros where you get to the bottom of the lineup with Chas McCormick not performing, with Jake Myers, like, just not being that great of a bat? Jeremy Pena, what section are you in? Are you in the we're afraid of you section, or are you in the these are the auto out section? Because he's been both at different times. There have been Jeremy Pena where I'm watching where I'm like, I don't even care about your defense. That's how bad the bat is. And then there's been times where I'm like, you a top 5 shortstop? Holy shit. That's why I feel like he's such an X factor for this team. But again, it's a little tough. I assume you're going to go with a pitcher, and a pitcher is probably the right answer. But I just know the dichotomy between bad Jeremy Pena and good Jeremy Pena. And good Jeremy Pena wins World Series MVPs. Bad Jeremy Pena is almost unplayable. Can
Yeah.
we get World Series MVP? I think that's a big X factor.
And I like where the bats come along this year. Like he has taken a step in the right direction. The contact rates are up. Like if he gets hot, yeah, he could be a difference maker for sure. The offense has been pretty darn good. And as you mentioned, they're going to get Kyle Tucker back. With the way that Ronel Blanco has started to fade a little bit, and that you can't blame him. This guy's never thrown near this many innings. He's already at 128. And he's had some major long outings because of the no hitter and getting close to another. Like Ronel is starting to fade. Hunter Brown has picked up the slack, which is great. His last 12 starts, he's got like a 2.25 ERA. Kikuchi has been a great addition for them. Not a cost effective, but a great addition. And Framber still, every time we're like you check in, like he doesn't even feel like he's doing well. He's got a 3.38, so he's still Framber.
Jack and I were talking about that a few days ago. It's like, since when does Framber have a 3.38? And then you're like, well, he threw a freaking no hitter. Like, sometimes he has these 8-inning shutouts where nobody on the planet, I don't care who is in the lineup, if he's locating that sinker off that curveball, like, you're just not going to get hits anything that day.
I'm going with the guy that has 25 strikeouts in his last 2 starts, Spencer Arrighetti.
Ooh,
because if Blanco's fading, you got lefty. Brown's your one righty, and who else you got? I think Arrighetti, if he's throwing like this, like we're seeing flashes here. This guy, he's a rookie. He's been up and down. He's had games where he gets bludgeoned. We talked about that.
Yeah, he is.
And then there's others where
he's unplayable, and then games where it's like, are you an ace? What is going on here?
Like 12 Ks and 13 Ks against the Rays and the Red Sox at Fenway. He also has another outing with 10 Ks this year. If there's something that the Astros found here from a sequencing standpoint, the same thing that they've been able to do with Kikuchi, clearly something's clicked with Arrighetti over the last couple starts. Like if he can be on that Hunter Brown wavelength, now this rotation's crazy because you're gonna get Justin Verlander back, but I think Verlander's house money at this point. Like he's just not looked great in his rehab outings. I think you're just kind of taking what you can get there. But having a young Arrighetti just available and throwing well, I think is a huge difference maker for them, especially because the bullpen has been a little bit shaky too. Just having another arm, I don't even care what his role is. Like it just gives you more options. So I think this is a spot too where they may want to preserve Blanco a bit for the postseason when you get Verlander back. So if they want to do that as well and manage his innings, like you don't want to have us drop off here. Arrighetti becomes even more important in the rotation. I just think having another guy that can shove, and remember, he has a 5.14 ERA. How many guys with a 5.14 ERA have also struck out 13 and 12 in back-to-back outings? Like, there's clearly a wide range of outcomes for this 24-year-old, and I mean that in a good way. Like the high-end outcomes right now are domination. So if he can tap into that a bit more consistently, this rotation becomes a lot scarier.
I can agree with you more. And I'm glad you did bring up Arrighetti because he's looked unbelievably electric lately. And my original thought when I was first, creating my X Factors and doing research, my mind immediately went to Verlander. But then I looked up how he's been doing in his rehab starts. And I was like, truly, Peter, like, yes, you could create a narrative right now where you're like, oh, when Verlander comes back, can we see vintage Verlander? I don't know if, I don't think it's fair to Verlander to say, go back 7 years and be that dominant self. Like, I just don't think that's fair to him. But can he be good? I think he's just going to come back and be like pretty good.
Yeah.
Right?
Not going to punch out 12 and 13.
No. Like, can he be like a Max Scherzer for the Rangers last year? Which isn't great, but can he
be better than
like
that?
Yeah, or something like that. Like, can he? I think that's kind of where he's at right now. And if he's way better than that, then the Astros are
great,
dangerous. But I just don't know if I can truthfully come in and say that. But I can say that about Jeremy Pena because I've seen it and it wasn't that long ago and the dude's in the middle of his prime now. Like, you could do this and the bat has looked better. So I like the Arrighetti one and I still do, like my one on Jeremy Pena. Let's move to the Mariners, and I think it's going to be pretty short. And not to say that as anything against the Mariners, I just think for me, it's the most obvious answer in the world, and like it is the answer. Julio Rodriguez can drag teams, drag them, right? When we're talking about Royce Lewis, Julio Rodriguez is in that boat. Now, he has not been great this year, which even makes him more of a bigger X factor because the Mariners offense, we've talked about that ad nauseum. And it's nice to see Victor Robles, get that 2-year extension. It was cool to see that. I think all baseball fans were excited to see, him get paid. And, I look at the rest of their lineup and it's like, well, Jorge Polanco, can he do what he did 3 years ago with the Twins? Like, probably not. But Julio Rodriguez can be the best player in the entire sport. And he's shown that before. And if Julio is Julio with then this rotation and then that bullpen, they only need a couple other guys to really hit because they're going to win a lot of low scoring games anyway. Julio and the pitching staff, like that can be enough to win games for the Mariners. So I think Julio is like no doubt 100% in a tier of his own X factor for this Mariners team.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about a player that can win MVPs, but also a player that has barely been a league average hitter this year. So, and been hurt in his defense and, came back straight off the IL with no rehab games and it goes over 5 with 5 punchies. That shows you how hard it is to just like get back into it. Then looked a lot better in the last game, picked up a double, didn't strike out against the Tigers. Like, this is a player that, when he's, back-to-back 5.8 F4 seasons, like when he's going, and he's impacting the game defensively, offensively, on the base paths, like everything. He's a superstar. So, you could go to a Rosarena, but a Rosarena is going to do his thing. And that's why they traded for him. That's why they gave him some really good pieces to get him. Cal Raleig's been raking. Like, at the end of the day, though, there's one player that has superstar abilities in this entire lineup, and it's Julio Rodriguez. So I'm with you. I tried to look at the Polanco thing. I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
That's just not going to happen. Like Luke Raley, sure. But like, okay, can he be a 780 OPS instead of 720? Like, sure. Julio Rodriguez can be
1,000 OPS.
superstar, yeah,
Like,
or not.
Yeah.
So, and just be banged up and struggling, and it's a lost year. So
And
I think he's the biggest X factor we discussed in the entire episode.
I think he's the biggest X factor, even dating back to the National League side. Like, this is a guy who, if Julio Rodriguez is not performing, I have actually no faith in the Mariners, because I love their pitching. Everybody loves their pitching, but like, if they have a bad day, like Kirby gave up fucking 11 runs. Like, it's just like with pitchers, it's just sometimes tough. Like, you need the guy in the offense to keep hitting, and that is Julio Rodriguez as much as any player in Major League Baseball. Anything else before we say goodbye?
No, I was just going to say, yeah, if it's not Julio, then your offense is pretty much predicated on Randy Rosarena, Cal Raleigh, and then who's your third best hitter at that point? Victor Robles?
Yeah, it's just, it can't happen. Or you have playoff Randy with Julio, and then that pitching staff, and it's like, holy shit, this team can win a World Series.
Yep.
So that'll do it for this episode of the Just Baseball Show. And what did I say at the very beginning? I told you it was going to be a banger. I think we just went an hour 30. I don't know how long we went, but I hope everybody enjoyed that. And on Friday, we're back to it. Casual Friday. It'll be a lot of fun. Jack, Aram, and I, the three of us on that Friday episode. So in the meantime, before that one comes out, could you leave a 5-star review? Spotify, Apple Podcasts, written review would be greatly appreciated. It's the best way to support this show. And if you haven't subscribed to YouTube yet and you've been watching these videos, what the hell are you doing? Can you help us out by pressing that big red button? It's absolutely free. You don't got to do nothing. All you got to do is just use your thumb or pointer finger. Just press the big red button to subscribe to this YouTube channel for baseball videos every single weekday. And go get yourself some Just Baseball merch. You know, I'm rocking my new hat. Haven't taken it off since. And we also got a new line of shirts that are unbelievably great. Shout out Brandon Anderson. So go check those out in the merch store. For Arm Layton, I am Peter Apple. Of course, we'll see you tomorrow. But with that, thank you, everybody.